Geometry, here we go with quadratics 4. We are going to solve our quadratics by factoring. So far we've solved them by graphing and by square rooting. Graphing doesn't always work in case you get decimals. Square roots doesn't always work because a square root doesn't work to solve when you have a variable in the middle. So we're going to solve this by factoring. Reminder of how to factor, and I will point out that we cannot solve it by factoring unless it equals 0. If it equals 0, then we can solve by factoring. If it doesn't equal 0, we're going to have to make sure it equals 0 before we solve by factoring. Factoring reminder, a trinomial into two binomials. You're splitting up the x squared into x times x. And you're splitting up the negative 18 into what two factors? A positive times a negative makes a negative. We'll multiply to make negative 18. But when you add them together, they actually equal 3. Because if I FOILed this back together, or distributed it, I would get x squared. You can do a quick check. Minus 3x plus 6x minus 18, and negative 3x plus 6x is 3x. So you can do a quick check just to see if you factored it properly. But I'm going to go backwards and get rid of those. Okay, now it's saying, if I take this and I multiply it times this, it has to equal 0. Well, if you know anything about the number 0, you can take anything times 0 and get 0. 5 times 0, 0 times 0, 0 times 2, negative 1 times 0. All of those equal 0. Both factors don't have to equal 0. One of them does, either the first one or the second one, or they both could. So we're going to say, how does this possibly equal 0? By setting x plus 6. That factor could equal 0. So what do we get? If we minus 6 from both sides, we find out that our answer is x equals negative 6. Let's check and see if that works. If I plug in negative 6, I'll get negative 6 plus 6 is 0. And negative 6 minus 3 is negative 9. But that's okay because 0 times negative 9 equals 0. So they don't both have to equal 0, just one of them does. Or I could plug in the negative 6 up here. If you squared negative 6, you would get 36. If you took negative 6 times 3, you would get negative 18. 36 minus 18 is 18. 18 minus 18 is 0. So it works no matter which place you plug it in. I'm going to back that up. Okay, but that says your first factor equals 0. Maybe the second factor could equal 0. What if we took x minus 3 equals 0? Add 3 to both sides. The other answer that it could be is x equals 3. There are two answers to this question. And if you don't believe me, you could check it. 3 plus 6 is 9. 3 minus 3 is 0. 9 times 0 is 0. 3 squared is 9. 3 times 9 is 27. 3 squared is 9. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 plus 9 is 18. Minus 18 is 0. They both work. And if you remember, it makes sense that they both work because that means that this is a parabola that hit at negative 6 and it also hit at 3. So you can have two answers. Now, I'm okay how you write your answer. It could be x equals negative 6, x equals 3, or you could do x equals negative 6, comma 3. Don't put parentheses, it's not a coordinate, but either one of those is fine. You should have two answers most of the time. Let's try this one. X squared minus 2x minus 24 equals 0. It does equal 0 to start. We'll factor it into its two parentheses, splitting up the x. Your answer, or your factor, is negative 24, so you need one of each, a plus and a minus. Two numbers that when you multiply them, they equal negative 24, but when you add 4 plus negative 6, it equals negative 2x. I'm going to solve each one of those separately. Either x plus 4 could equal 0, or x minus 6 could equal 0. And since this is geometry class instead of algebra, I'm going to shortcut. You can subtract 4 from both sides, but I can do that in my head. You could add 6 to both sides, or you can do it in your head. Your two answers are negative 4 and 6. Let's try this one with the y. Again, it's set equal to 0. Take the time to write this down. You probably have to pause it because I'm cruising through this. It does equal 0. You're going to use y and y. This time, your back number is positive. So it could be plus times plus. But your middle number is negative. So it has to be a negative times a negative equals a positive. Two factors that multiply to make 6, but add to make negative 5. Set each factor equal to 0 separately. And when you solve this one, you get y equals 3. And when you solve this one, you get y equals 2. That's basically what you're learning. Next one is not set up. We can't solve by factoring unless it equals 0. But you have the skill and the wherewithal to know how to make it equal 0. Minus 33 from both sides. You get w squared plus 8w minus 33 equals 0. Now it equals 0. Go ahead and factor it. 2 parentheses, w and w. That's a minus, so I need one of each. And 33 can break up into 3 times 11. Of course, making sure that the 11 is positive to add up to the 8. Set each factor separately equal to 0. Either w plus 11 is 0 or w minus 3 is 0. Either way, I can do these in my head if I subtract 11 from both sides or add 3 to both sides. Negative 11 and 3 are my final answers. And finally, if it's set up this way, again, you want it to equal 0, but make sure when you add 11x to both sides, you put it in the proper spot. It's going to squeeze right in between these two, and we'll go with x squared plus 11x plus 18 equals 0. Make your two factors out of that. Pause it and think about it if I'm going too fast, or try to test yourself to see if you can do your factors. They're both positive, so plus plus. 9 times 2 is 18. 9 plus 2 is 18. And your final answer is going to be x equals negative 9 and negative 2. Make sure you put x equals in front of it, comma in between. And that's it. Short notes, lots of factoring for you to do. Solve by factoring.